Yeah, so this is one of the most famous magazine campaigns done by an agency called Doyle Dane Bernbach. By the way, I kind of went back and looked at my agenda for today and decided, yeah, for some reason, whoop, 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 whoop. Okay. Um, the original agenda that I showed you guys at the beginning of the presentation, I somehow didn't include advertising. There it is now, advertising. That's where we are now. We're talking about advertising. Okay, then we'll talk about the industry and development in the future. Okay, just so you know where we are. There's a method to my madness. Here's another famous print ad. After 3 years, the car that costs the least costs the most. Another great print ad about that funny little beetle holding its value. That bug, as a lot of people call it. It's a bug, a love bug, right? If you run out of gas, it's easy to push. See, we think of everything. Getting a Volkswagen to the side of the road is a pushover. It's a little surprising that VW owners don't run out of gas more often. A figure like 32 miles to the gallon can make you a little hazy about when you last filled up. Fabulous ad. Just the character, the brand character shown, and the fact that it's black and white for the most part this campaign, and it's simple, great advertising. And this one is color. Anything this homely has got to be good. Try to buy one of these now, folks. Try to find an old one. This is like from, I don't know, late 60s maybe. Volkswagen van. I don't think this is a camper. It's just a wagon, or vanagon, I think they called it. But of course, they made the campers. Try buying a camper in good shape now. See what that'll cost you. Anyway, great advertising. I thought as we're going to talk about print magazine advertising, we should look at one of the best campaigns that ever ran. And of course, these days, you're buying print campaign, you're also usually buying ads on the corresponding website. Here's Cosmopolitan's editorial calendar, monthly topics for each issue for 2018. And they talk about what's happening with digital and social back in 2018. And you can appear in their social media, you can appear on the magazine website, and you do a cross-platform campaign. Means, print and online. That's what that means. The size of the schedule is important for an advertiser. I think I said before that if you want to bond with the subscribers of a magazine, you've got to appear more than once. You can't just put your ad in there one time and expect gangbuster results for the most part. So when an advertiser makes a commitment to magazines, it's not a one-night stand. It's a long-term relationship with commitment. Okay. It's possible for an advertiser to buy all the ads in a magazine. This was a while ago. This was Newsweek, which is no longer even printed. It's only online. And they did a whole issue about Selena, and Coca-Cola sponsored the entire issue. And no other advertiser was in there. So that can happen sometimes. And another thing in the ad front to be aware of, and especially those of us who are media literate, when an ad is made to look like the content in the magazine, it's called an advertorial if it's a printed magazine. If it's on the website, it's called native advertising. In other words, your ad is dressed up to look like a native, something that belongs in the magazine. I talk about it as it's a wolf in sheep's clothing. It's an ad that looks like content. So, little tiny bit deceptive, but it is allowed. And for the advertiser, where they appear in the printed magazine, and also online for that matter, makes a huge difference in terms of whether the ad is seen or not. The industry. I look for a picture of a dead tree with something growing in it. So there's the sense is that there's new life in the industry. I think that's really what I was trying to get at with this visual. Dollars have gone down. It's 2005 to 2019. It's from Statista. So you see a high of $46 billion in revenue down to $26 billion. So it's a big loss in revenue due to decline in ad spending. But the number of magazines has gone up. There are now 7,400 magazines. And lots of new magazines are being launched. 5, 10, 15, 20 new magazines in the special interest, quote unquote. So that could be a new tattoo magazine, a new skating magazine. I mean, who knows? So there's life. There are shoots of life. Readership, number of magazines is good. Ad spending is not so good. Here are some of the new magazines launched in 2020. Okay. So now in terms of the big magazine publishing companies, there were really the big four: Condé Nast, Hearst, Meredith, and Time. We're going to talk about each one of these, but Time doesn't exist anymore. One of the stalwarts of the 20th century in terms of magazine publishing companies, a very successful company. Doesn't exist as a company. All of its assets have been sold off. Many of its magazines have been closed or have gone online exclusively. Condé Nast is a company I had a fair amount to do with. One of the jobs I had for a few years was working with selling subscriptions to an online database and news service about what advertisers were planning to do. And our subscribers were the sales forces of media companies. So I was calling on the head salespeople for lots of titles at Condé Nast, the New Yorker, Vanity Fair, on and on, GQ. This, I think, is their new headquarters. They've moved down to the New World Trade Center now, I believe, Condé Nast. Condé Nast, privately owned company, not a public stock. It's owned by the Newhouse family. They publish some of the most beautiful, sleek magazines in the world. Here's a list of their brands: Architectural Digest, Epicurious, Glamour, GQ, Vogue, Teen Vogue, Vanity Fair. This is just some of their brands. A very elegant company. And if you ever saw the movie The Devil Wears Prada, it's a loosely veiled movie about working at Vogue magazine. Meryl Streep plays the editorial director of a magazine called Runway, which is loosely supposed to be Vogue, and she's supposed to be Anna Wintour, I guess, with a very, I don't know how to put it, demanding work ethic. Yeah, Condé Nast, upscale, beautiful magazines, privately owned company, but slow to the internet. Okay, here's Hearst again. This is William Randolph Hearst. We saw him when we talked about newspapers. The film by Orson Welles, Citizen Kane, is based on William Randolph Hearst. Here's his home, San Simeon, in the hills of Southern California. Here's the new Hearst headquarters on 57th Street in Manhattan. And they do have a great cafeteria, so does Condé Nast. Largest publisher of magazines worldwide. 300 print editions, 265 websites, 34 languages, and 84 countries. Wow. Here are some of the Hearst magazine titles. Cosmo, Elle, Esquire, Good Housekeeping, Harper's Bazaar, Red Book, 17, Men's Health. They also own some newspapers and TV stations. They're a multimedia conglomerate, Hearst. Interesting thing they did since 1909. Good Housekeeping magazine, one of those women's magazine, one of the oldest ones, originally for women who stayed at home taking care of a house and being housekeepers. This magazine would put their seal of approval on different products that they would test. Interesting concept for the brand. Meredith Company is an interesting outfit based in Des Moines, Iowa, right in the middle of the country. Meredith started publishing magazines for farmers and farmers' wives, and they're the ones who bought most of the brands from Time Inc. when Time Inc. went out of business. And let's see if we can look at some of their brands here. Let's see if I can do the escape. Now I may have to take this. I probably am going to have to take this. See if I can go online to show you some of their magazine brands. Okay, so here we go. See, it's a very wholesome company. It's based in Des Moines. So they're the ones. They got People magazine was launched by Time Inc. in about 1973. Now owned by Meredith. In Style was owned by Time. They own that. So these are parents, quilting, wood, coastal living, southern living, all recipes, people. Interesting brands at Meredith. Okay. Measuring the impact. Wow, how about that? Sales impact on magazine advertising. Interesting concept. So Meredith. Oops, let's go back to our Screencast-O-Matic is how I'm recording the lectures, folks, in case you wondered. Time Inc., founded 1922 by Henry Luce, Britton Haddon. Had over 100 magazine brands. Time, Sports Illustrated, Travel, Leisure, Food and Wine, Fortune, People, InStyle. I mean, look at these. Hugely successful company. I used to know people back when I started in the advertising business who went to work for Time. You got 4 weeks vacation the day you walked in the door at Time Inc. Anytime you went out to lunch with another employee, it was covered by the magazine. But they made some wrong turns. Time magazine, their first publication, 15 cents, 1924. Edith Cummings, whoever that is. Sorry, I don't know. They were famous for Man of the Year and then Person of the Year. One of the kind of franchise things that Time did. Of course, I have to get the Beatles and John Lennon into every presentation that I can. Life magazine was a picture magazine, and Look was competition for Life magazine. Now, of course, both out of business. Here's one from 1964 on the left with the Beatles, and Beatle John Lennon by Avedon in 1968, 4 years later. He's psychedelic. Picture magazine. Full-out portfolio on the Beatles. Pictures. Time Inc. So that magazine was bought by this fellow here on top. I believe his name is Mark. I want to say Benioff. He is the owner of Salesforce.com, which is the leading customer relationship management software platform. He bought Time Inc. the way Steve Jobs bought the Washington Post. Okay. influential news interpretation magazine he owns, and the print edition is still published.